Friday, 27th of June, 2014. Suncorp Stadium, Broncos v Sharks. 54th minute. Todd Carney takes a pass from Jeff Robson, 15 metres out on the last. Cronulla haven't scored a point since Michael Gordon scored a try and kicked his own conversion in the 50th minute of their loss to the West Tigers in round 10 on the 17th of May, some 41 days before. In 3 additional matches, with 2 byes scattered in there being Origin season, across 324 minutes of football, the Sharks have failed to register a point. With some eyes-up awareness, Carney puts a flat pinpoint kick across the field, deep into the right corner of the in-goal, looking to find a flying Jacob Gagan chasing at top speed. Little did he know that this moment would trigger a frenetic 26-minute period that will put him and his teammates that night in the history books for the club and the following days kickstart other events that would explode, triggering a rollercoaster of emotions for himself, the players, everyone associated with the club, including the entire NRL, creating a universe of diverse opinions of what should and shouldn't have happened that would change his and the club's path forever. Welcome to this week's edition of Classic Cronulla Chronicles.
For over 50 years, people have come to see the Sharks play. Talent, skill, speed, intelligence, elite-level athleticism. That's not these guys. Biased, one-eyed, opinionated. More often wrong than right. They make up for their complete lack of talent with pure dribble, gibberish, and enthusiasm. This is the ET Stand Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ET Stand Podcast, the Cronulla Sharks fan podcast, where we let our talking do the football. Here we are for another episode of Classic Cronulla Chronicles with this week's round of the 2024 season, seeing the Sharks travel to Suncorp Stadium to play the Brisbane Broncos. So we'll travel back in time. We did say we're going back to 2004, and I've got a gripe with you, NRL. You don't have any coverage at that one. You also said you had some coverage at this one, and you don't. We had to go off highlights and memories only from that time where this game wasn't even shown live on a Friday night. But anyway, we're going back to round 16 of 2014. We all know 2014 well. Broncos v Sharks. Lats, welcome back. Third time starter. Always good to have the man of the people here. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, mate. They were quite different from halftime to full time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What a comeback. I didn't think we were a chance. Listened to a bit of it on the radio. Yeah, mate, stopped listening at halftime, unfortunately. So,
yeah, it was back in the days where they had the 2 games on Channel 9 on a Friday night. No Fox Sports. KO didn't exist, so no Fox Sports simulcast. So you had to wait for 9:30. I know I was in Victoria at the time. I thought maybe it was a Melbourne game from hindsight. Well, poor memory, but it was actually a Roosters versus Manly game. I think Manly ended up winning that kept the Sharks, who were well down the table. So obviously this is the lesser of the 2 matchups. Expected to be very one-sided and one-way traffic, which it was early. Was the delayed game, and there was no way of watching live or consuming live outside of radio. So you made mention there, I did consume this via a bit of radio late, only after kind of giving up on score watching on the phone. May have had a few drinks down while I was on a course down in Victoria, thinking, oh gosh, we're gone, and someone saying, oh, this is getting interesting, and then listen to the last 20 minutes on the radio as we came back and eventually won, spoiler alert. But yeah, have a look at the form in a second. But do you have any other broader memories of 2014 other than it being horrific?
No, mate, not a lot happened around these couple of weeks around this game or the week around this game. Yeah, I remember just being pretty defeated that season. I thought it was pretty lackluster, and after coming into it, a few games down, wasn't expecting much at all, and to do it in Suncorp, yeah, I thought we were no chance, to be honest. I stopped listening on the radio at halftime, and probably good thing that it was the delayed game, because I would have stopped watching it on TV at halftime. So I enjoyed it afterwards, but yeah, mate, it was a funny one, this one.
Yeah, strange times. Obviously, for background, everyone will remember not so fondly that it was the completely Asada-affected season. 2013, at the start of the 2013 season, it started to rear its head with, I suppose, reports of what had happened and dealings with what happened in early 2011. There was the club's handling and the appointing of the external recommendations that saw a whole stack of staff, including the coach Flanagan being, I suppose, stood down, including the doctor and Noakesy and who was it, Trent Elkin and the like. A few end up losing their jobs. A few were stood down, reinstated. There was a change of board. And in 2013, it had a dark shadow hanging over it. It was in December 2013 that the NRL stepped in and suspended Shane Flanagan for a year. So we ended up with an interim coach who was the assistant coach, Peter Sharp. And as you see, this game this week was kind of like 2009, kind of like we've spoken about all the things that happened throughout, especially the early part of that season. So much stuff happened in and around this game, and the good guys won, but there was a lot of other events off the field that made it definitely agony to ecstasy, ecstasy to agony. Feel like a bit of a loss in the following days. But I did have a bit of an intro monologue, changed the format a bit there because this is such a sliding doors moment for the club, I think, which we can only see in hindsight. So that's why we'll focus on good old Todd Carney at the end there. We'll have a quick look at the form guide leading in. No surprises there. I've already spoken about it. We lost 26-0 to Manly at home. We had a bye. We lost 30-0 to the Dragons away. We had a bye. And we lost 18-0 to Souths at home. And that was John Morris's 300th and final match on a Monday night to the eventual premiers. So we picked up 4 competition points in that period. It was a bit of a different format with the 16 teams and State of Origin. By this stage, or the playing of this match, New South Wales had sewn up their first State of Origin win since 2005, I think it was. Paul Gallen leading them to, well, hadn't lifted the shield yet. They hadn't played game 3. That would be after the following week's match. So all players were available. I've got the timeline here, but New South Wales won 12-8 in the opening match. And on the opening match at Game 1 Suncorp on the 28th of May, and then Game 2 at at ANZ, my correction, on the 18th of June. New South Wales won 6-4 with that Trent Hodgkinson try. Game 3 was to come on the 9th of July. So a bit of a different vibe. I suppose Gallen, maybe the pressure was off a bit, the heat was off, while Brisbane, sitting in 6th, had 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 bye. They lost to the Warriors 19-10. The Warriors were very good that year. They were one of the best attacking teams in the comp. While they had a run of wins prior to that with 28-4 win over the Raiders, 36-10 win over the Sea Eagles, and a 16-14 win over the Tigers. Do you remember anything specifically around this period, other than the fact that the Sharks were terrible and it was just a question, would we score a point?
Mate, I remember these games here, like Manly and St. George, our 2 biggest rivals, getting held to duck eggs. I remember it just being horrid. We were copping it left, right, and centre from friends, family. Not to mention we were still, copping it for the Asada thing. Yeah, it was just a terrible time for us, wasn't it? Really horrid, horrid run.
And we didn't look like scoring a point in any of those matches, really. I remember watching all 3. Kind of, it was in that era of what are we doing? Why are we bothering? It very much felt like 2009, 2010 all over again, 2003. But even those,
you almost wish NRL had stepped in and just cancelled us for a couple of seasons. It was that bad.
Oh, there was a lot of talk about that around. There was every expert getting around. Big shout out to, I think it was James Hooper and Josh Massoud, who was leading every Daily Telegraph Asada style story. And unfortunately, we were giving them plenty of content to legitimately report on in the negative. But anyway, that was the form guide going into it. You'd be mad. I don't know what the line was. I don't know what the odds were, but we would have been paying, gosh, $8 or $9 plus, I reckon, going into it.
Especially at half time.
Yeah.
Live betting. Monstrous.
49.50 to 1. I don't know if they quote that stuff. Maybe greater. Probably were greater. But we'll have a quick look at the lineups. So the Broncos, as Lats did reveal offline, red hot Broncos side. Having a look at it, number 1, future Shark Ben Barber. The wingers Daniel Vito and Dale Copley. The centers Jack Reed and Justin Hodges. The halves Josh Hoffman, Ben Hunt. Front row of Josh Maguire, Jake Granville, and Ben Hannett. The back row Alex Glenn, Corey Oates, Sam Thaiday. Corey Oates, an interesting one in the second row there. Converted winger later. The bench of Todd Lowry, David Stagg, David Haller, and Jared Wallace. The coach was Mr. Personality himself, Anthony Griffin. Whilst for the Cronulla Sharks, interesting lineup. So Michael Gordon, the ever dependable at the back. the wingers Sasai Feki and Jacob Gagan in his second match in first grade. The centers Jonathan Wright, Ricky Latelli. The halves Todd Carney, Jeff Robson. The front row Paul Gallen had moved to prop, despite wearing jersey number 13, with Sosaya Vave in the other prop position wearing jersey 17. Michael Leisha was the hooker. The back row, Luke Lewis, Anthony Tupou, Wade Graham, and the bench, Sam Tagatese, Farmanu Brown, Tinarau, Arona, and Chris Heinington. The coach, Peter Sharp. You'll see a lot of numbers all over the place there. We got Paul Gallen in 13 playing prop, Vave 17 playing prop, Anthony Tupou wearing jersey 16 coming into the starting lineup, Wade Graham wearing jersey 12 for playing lock, Sam Tagatese in jersey 8 going back to the bench. Chris Heinington's wearing jersey 22. Lots of moving and shaking. I'll have the full list of ins and outs for you shortly, but thoughts on those sides?
Yeah, mate, that Brisbane side, you look at that side, that's 90% rep players. That's a huge side. And to pull off the unbelievable and just come back and beat a team like that and claw back so many points, unbelievable. From out. We had a patched up Band-Aid side, and wow.
Yes,
would never have expected that after our past few performances anyway.
Ins and outs, Michael Gordon had come back to fullback. He'd been playing wing the last few weeks with Nathan Gardner at fullback, trying to put some spark into it, bring Gardner back into first grade. And I think this is the final season where he did have any matches in first grade. Whilst Blake Ashford dropped out of the centres, Bryce Gibbs was injured from the front row, and Tupou Supawanga dropped off the bench. Jono Wright, Jacob Gagan, Jeff Robson came back from injury, and Chris Heinington all coming into the side. So you had Farmanu Brown was the hooker, the halfback the previous week, dropping back to the bench. Sam Tagatese dropped back to the bench, and it was a fair bit of moving and shaking. Even Luke Lewis played bench the previous week and had moved into the starting lineup, but we'll see in the actual match result.
Probably wishes he did it this week.
He wished he was on the bench for this one. So, but you're right, that Broncos side, obviously Ben Barber, who wasn't peak form for the Broncos there. Obviously had Dally M performance for the Bulldogs in 2012, then moved to the Broncos for 2 seasons, and then joined us at the end of this one. Had a bit of an unhappy period. I think he bulked up. They tried to play in the halves. We tried that initially too. So didn't see too much Ben Barber electricity, I suppose, in this one, but still ever dangerous. But if you've got Justin Hodges in there, he was very good at the end of his career. Daniel Vito, you see scores early. That forward pack was just carving through us, including what Alex Glenn scores one as well. So we'll see shortly. So anyway, it was that ominous, almost impossible task, but something clicked. So looking at the actual match itself, so it wasn't long for Brisbane to open the scoring, and you hear everyone's favourite commentator Ray Hadley talking about how it didn't take long for Brisbane to open the floodgates. 15 minute. It was a bit of a simple short side play there. The right winger, I think it was Gagan, had come in, unfortunately, and Vito went over untouched. They missed the goal. It was 4-0. Being highlights only that we're going off, do you have anything to critique there, or I suppose look at it? We were a bottom place side. Yeah.
Again, mate, we weren't expecting much, but we were just a patched up side. Like, it was just a mess. I'm so surprised they pulled it together, to be honest. That was a huge effort.
Yes, that was a short side play. Shortly afterwards, it was basically one off the ruck, a bit of a scoot out of dummy half from Granville, put Alex Glenn through a hole, and he stepped, so went through an enormous hole. He could have drove a semi-trailer through it. I think
thanks to Matty Wright, wasn't it? That yawning gap there.
Yeah, it was Matt Wright. Was he? I was looking at it. Jono Wright.
Jono Wright. Sorry, wrong right.
Jono Wrong was leaving. Hadn't basically. I think what the highlights don't show is a quick play the ball, obviously, and Glenn went streaking through, stepped inside. I mean, he's a huge unit. Stepped inside Michael Gordon there, and he stood no chance, and it was 10-0 under the posts. Shortly thereafterwards, there was an offload that got it to big David Harler, who I can't remember. I maybe it's my memory at the time, not paying much attention to football because we're going so terrible. But I don't even remember this guy, and he scored 2 tries against us.
No.
So he scored. So 5 minutes out from half time, the all-important third try. Brisbane were up 16-0. Probably should have been up by more. Anyway, there was a bit of talk about, okay, Sharks turning around, gets the ball, let's go. Not even 2 minutes in the second half. It was just a simple play, one off the ruck, and Harler just barged through again through some pretty soft defence. And once, you can see like that early in the second half, you think surely there's no way back from there. And I think that's what everyone thought. Hence,
Granville was carving us up there from from that hooking roll, just directing it all across the paddock, and you just caught us napping in so many places.
Yeah, I completely forgot that he played for the Broncos, and I suppose he went to the Cowboys because he was part of their premiership winning team the following season, wasn't he?
He's still playing some decent footy too. He's getting on a bit now, but he's still out there.
Yeah, so I mean, it was always very fast out of dummy half. As you said, tore us to shreds, and their forward pack was just carving through us, and we didn't have much answer really. We did touch on it before, and I completely missed it in my coverage. But in the second minute, or not even about a minute and a half gone, Luke Lewis had a horror head clash, and that was pre-serious HIAs.
Yeah, they were just sort of coming into it, weren't they? The HIAs.
Yeah, but Lewis was definitely gone. Had a split melon. And wasn't coming back. So that was him gone, 1 forward down for the entirety of the match. And as we were talking about before, though, at the start, finally, the Sharks get a bit of possession downfield. From this play, the highlights don't show it, but they go left initially, then come back right. Robson gives it back to Carney, who's midfield, kind of 15 out right in front of the sticks, and he just eyes up. So they've gone left, bring it back right, and just kicks it. And it's just a perfectly placed, just neat little flat crossfield kick that is as close to the corner of the in goal as you possibly could. And Gagan, so that the Broncos have shifted in. Gagan is just sprinting onto it and catches it and scores. And what a way to score!
Pulls it in beautifully.
Gets it down just inside the dead ball line. Gets off the mark. His second first grade game. His first try. Cronulla's first try in 320 minutes of football.
Even Hadley got a bit excited for us on that one. He was.
He did. I don't know. He
scored a point. The Sharkies.
Yeah. Oh, go Sharkies! They finally scored a point. Anyway, we dared to dream. No, I don't think we dared to dream at that point. It's like, cool, we finally scored one. We finally scored one. It's going to be 50-4. Michael Gordon nailed it from the right touch line. Okay, it's going to be 50-6. See how we go. And then shortly afterwards, there was some neat play from Leisha to Carney. And I think around this time too, it had been announced that we were losing Michael Leisha to the Bulldogs, and everyone's like, "Oh gosh, he's like the next best hooker." We know how that went down. But anyway, so Leisha to Carney, who puts Gallen onto a short ball and burrows his way over. It's like, okay, here we go, 22-10, interesting. Gordon kicks it, 22-12. Okay, we'll see how we go. 6 minutes later, I'm going to say some Leisha magic here. He steps out of dummy half, draws in a defender, and puts Carney through a yawning gap to somehow, suddenly, like you can hear the commentary going, where's this come from? They're back within 4, and there's still 16 minutes to play, 17 minutes to play. What's going on? So any comments on these? Like, obviously, we were starting to get our groove, get position.
Yeah. What a little 10-minute period that was. And you could just start to see all these changes and shuffles that Sharp had put in place were starting to work.
Yeah.
It was just a nice little 10-minute period there after points to the Broncos, and lit it up.
Got some quality ball. Robson was feeding it to Carney well. Carney was orchestrating things. He was running a lot. He was kicking a lot. He was one of those players. We'll talk about him more shortly, but I remember being at a game in, I think it was 2012, Monday night game at Homebush. I'd come down from Brisbane for it. We were hoping to win. I think we lost by 6. Souths were very good. They obviously made the prelim final that year. But Carney was on another level of anyone on the field. So fast. I think it was from a scrum. He just picked it up and just sprinted 90 metres. He didn't finish the try, but no one could keep up. So when he was on and his hammies and calves and all the other injury problems were not causing him issues, he was one of the fastest players in the comp. And had a passing and kicking game to boot. So anyway, Carney got us back in it. They put a kick downfield. I think it was Ben Hunt with a neat kick into the in goal. Michael Gordon, ever safe at the back, almost got out. He beat 2 defenders, but was caught in goal to put us under pressure. We repelled that set and then marched downfield, and it was a Carney bomb from about 30 metres out. Went very high. Dale Copley went up for it. There was a bit of traffic. I don't know if there was a disruptor. Good thing there wasn't
But
a
I don't
rule
know
at
if
that point,
that'd
John.
be a Broncos penalty Broncos this day and age,
Yeah.
but we'll take it.
It was back in the year. It was Friday night. It was back in the year of penalty Broncos. No questions asked. The 6 again is kind of we'll see it this Saturday, I suppose. Taking away the accountability for the referee, and that they can just keep on doing it without the penalty Broncos chant going up. But Copley dropped it, and Fecky, Johnny on the spot, picks it up and dives over, cueing mass celebrations. But there's still a kick to come, and Gordon nails it from. Wasn't the sideline, it's probably more the scrum line, but puts us 2 up. And not only have we scored more points in, what's that, about 20 minutes than we had in the last, whatever that was, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, but we're on the verge of winning. They held on, and somehow miraculously they won, and that was a record for the club. The previous record comeback for the club was 18 points down, which they've done on multiple occasions, obviously against the Northern Eagles in 2002, the Cowboys in 2010, and I think on one other occasion, I'm showing my lack of awareness there, but they were the record results by way of comeback, and we'd beaten that. So, and what better way to do it than at Suncorp? So, so
very nice.
Big talking points. So.
Jeez, just Jacob, in that game, how big was Gallen in that game? He was monstrous.
Yeah, he was.
I've got a few stats here. He had 22 hit ups.
Yeah.
For 223 run meters, 41 tackles, a line break, 6 tackle breaks, and a try. Yeah, that's leadership.
That's exactly. That's Pete Gadden. I remember early 2012 when he had it was the old fantasy or NRL fantasy, NRL Dream Team point scoring system, and he scored close to 100 points, I think, which was kind of unheard of then against the Cowboys early season in Townsville, where he scored a try, was just a tackle breaking machine. And that was back when we were getting borderline frustrated because he was taking 2 carries a set, including that classic settler on the 4th. But you're right, leadership. And that's the only way he knew how. He scored that important try. So it's one thing scoring a try for the first time in 324 minutes. It's another thing, he was the second try scorer straight up. So, okay, come on, boys, let's get back with intent and go from there. Those stats. And they were hard carries in amongst, we all know how much emphasis and priority placed on Origin. Captain's knock there. And in amongst a famous Origin win as well. But Jacob Gagan, I had high hopes. Franco will obviously be shouting when he's watching this, going how good he was and how he should be still playing. And I agree. Like, he showed so much that season in a pretty dark year, or very dark year. He was a breakout, made his debut against the Dragons, scored a try in this one. He scored a few doubles. He scored a double against the Roosters the following week, and a double in a win over the Panthers in Bathurst a few weeks after that. So he only ended up playing 7 matches all year. Injuries cruelled him, unfortunately, and I completely forgot about him going to the Knights and scoring against us in 2017. And then again, he played for Souths for a period, came back, played for us. But what are your Jacob Gagan memories? He was looking pretty good.
Well, he actually married one of my wife's good friends. So believe it or not, one of Casey's work friends. So he's an absolute gentleman. I've met him a few times, and he's the nicest bloke. They got a couple of kids, lovely family. I remember seeing this kid and thinking he was awesome on the field. I thought he had the spark, had the X factor, and as you said, unfortunately, injuries got the better of him and sort of shortened his career there. But I really liked Gagan. I thought he was mad. Yeah, so he was quick. He was so quick.
So quick, but he also had a great finish too. He didn't look, I suppose, like the biggest winger, like not quite a new mould like Mulatalo and that these days, but he scored one of the tries against the Roosters. I think one of the tries against the Panthers in Bathurst. He was going to be pushed out for all money, and he muscled his way through beating defenders, could take a high ball, could, as you said, had a good leap, could run. We'll have to get him on the show maybe when we cover the either Roosters or Broncos.
See what we can work out.
Now that we know that connection exists. But Gagan, I know he was one of Franco's favourites. I do remember, I think, seeing him in under 20s when I'd watch games with Franco. And obviously converted to first grade. Unfortunately, injuries cruelled him, but we were looking at, he was looking like being a long-term winger for us. And then I suppose injuries, a guy by the name of Valentine Holmes. Earlier that year, we lost Bo Ryan. He retired with a neck injury early in 2014. So, it's a case of what might have been. I forgot the fact that Gagan went to the Knights, scored against us in a a scratchy 19-18 win to us in round 5 of 2017. Played for Souths one game. Unfortunately, also lost that 1-1 point to Manly in 2019.
Wow.
Came back to us, played reserve grade for Newtown, I think in 2022, 2023, and then it was mid-23 he went to Souths again. So he's still playing for Norths, I think, or last I saw.
Yep.
I'll just have a look at him, but he's still getting around in the New South Wales Cup system. There we are. So he was, or still is actually playing for Norths in the 2024 Host Plus Cup. He's got 10 appearances and 3 tries this year. So still getting around. I think he'd converted to second row, maybe. I can't remember or can't be sure of that.
Yep.
Yeah. So good old Jacob Gagan and broke the drought for us. So great stuff. Michael
Legend.
Gordon was a standout year for him in what was, again, as I said, a disappointing year. He got what was the known as the Pontifex medal at the time, previously the the Monty Porter medal that is now known as the Porter Gallen medal. So Sharks Player of the Year. He'd won it in 2013. He won it again in 2014 and also got Players Player. Scored 6 tries, kicked how many goals it was? 50 goals to get 124 points, which was our highest point scorer. Pretty bleak for the year that it was, but I suppose when you're not scoring any points, I think 4 matches that year, pretty good return and very dependable at the back. Yep.
Yeah, he was the standout in this match in regards to his goal kicking, wasn't he? He got us over the line in the end. He's nailing one from the sideline there, and a couple of uneasy kicks. I used to love watching Flash. I thought he was awesome. You knew he was safe as at the back there, and he didn't mind a hit up. He was solid, and he was strong in defence.
Yeah, he was very strong in defence. You're right, had some tough carries. I remember when we signed him, start of 2013, and he came across, we played one game for New South Wales when he was at Penrith, came across a lot of promise, and I think he delivered. I think there were some people who were like, oh, he's a bit less flashy than I would have hoped, or he wasn't as fast. I think he'd had a season-ending injury, maybe a knee injury, ACL, his final season with Penrith before we signed us, so that kind of affected his speed. But still, he scored, as Kelly and I were talking about with the 2015 match against the Cowboys at home. I thought it was about a 50-metre kick return. It was an 80-metre or 90-metre kick return off a Thurston kick to score. So it had the tendency to score the odd spectacular try as well.
Yeah, he's just the ultimate competitor. He always put in and competed on every play, and you knew he was safe at the back there.
Yeah, very safe. And he went, jumped from club to club after he left us, unfortunately, due to, I suppose, you'd argue the Ben Barber existence. There was talk in 2015 of them sharing the fullback role or switching and swapping and changing. I remember, I think he asked for release mid-2015, but the club kept him before he proceeded on to Parramatta, then the Roosters, then the Titans. So yeah, great competitor. Moving on, Peter Sharp now. Earlier start of the season, obviously Flanagan got moved aside. Peter Sharp became a reluctant coach. And I remember hearing rumours before the season started that all was not well, but the club couldn't afford a proper first-grade coach with everything going on. Peter Sharp wasn't happy in the role. Enormous off-field distraction for everyone involved with the Asada scandal. But he's still after making the finals in 2012, 2013. You don't want to believe it, but by about this stage of the year, we realised that, hey, all was not right. We still had a decent team on paper in parts, but just didn't convert on the paddock. What are your memories of Peter Sharp?
Look, I remember he didn't want the job initially. He was thrust in there. I don't think he had a choice. Unfortunately, that he made that vocal, and as we were having a chat off air about the little stoush he had with Gallen.
Yes.
Where I think Gallen came out and said something along the lines of, you can't expect the players to put in if you're not going to put in that with that sort of attitude.
Yes.
Yeah. Phil Gould has massive raps on him. I was reading an article by Phil Gould, I think it was the Sydney Morning Herald, around his tenure with the Sharks. And he was saying, because Phil Gould was not happy how he was treated at the Sharks, and he said apparently he's a really good guy to have around. Like, he's a funny guy, but a very knowledgeable guy around football. He was really good with the junior systems. And he used to get so intense watching the matches that one day he left his wife at the match and travelled the whole F3 and had to go back and get her because he'd forgotten to take her home. He was so caught up on the match. But Phil Gould said when he left the club, he said, during this game, this Broncos game, he was cheering for him at that game, and he was cheering for him even harder when he left the Cronulla club due to the way he was treated. So
there you go. Good. I'll have to try and find that article. I found obviously.
I did take some screenshots, mate. I'll send it through to you.
Yeah, nice. Wow, that's it's an interesting one. So Peter Sharp, he was a Northern Eagles and Manly Seagulls coach back in the day, back in the early 2000s, late 90s. So looking at it, his overall record as a coach, 133 matches overall, 50 wins, 81 losses, 2 draws for a 39.6% win percentage, 16 games for the Sharks in 2014. With 4 wins, 12 losses, so 25% win record there. One of those guys, I suppose, did do the head coaching thing with Manly and the Northern Eagles. Didn't quite cut it there, but obviously well respected and very capable and competent in the roles that he played as an assistant coach and as you said, working with the junior system. So didn't play first grade from what I could see, or what I could find on records anyway, but that doesn't mean anything. Obviously, an astute mind, a good I suppose, assistant coach for Flano to work with, who was obviously very experienced, but was thrust into that position and to find your quotes about Gallen. And what prompted me was watching the highlights as we were talking offline, and the opening line of the person who's put in the highlights package for NRL was talking about Paul Gallen putting out self-ignited spot fires during the week. And I'm like, gee, Gallen around that time, was it when he made a comment or numerous comments about Asada? Was when he was getting a stoush with a journalist, or was it him calling the Queensland pack soft? Which one was it? And then I looked up. I was like, oh no, it was about Peter Sharp and what he was saying on Triple M. So
all the above.
The exact quote was, I don't want to sit here, or all of the above too. That could have been insert week here during that period. I think it was it 2013 when he was insulting the Queensland pack and put one on Nate Miles' jaw, which he since revealed in his book was for NRL to help boost ticket sales and the like. But he said, I don't want to sit here and bag Sharpie because Sharpie's been thrown in the deep end because he came out day one and said he didn't want the job. To me, players are like school kids. If you can't turn up Monday and the coach isn't going to rouse on you for not having a good game, I don't think you're going to put 100% in. I think that's been the problem throughout the year. I don't think players have been putting 100% in because they're under the impression Sharpie isn't putting 100% in. I just think we've lacked direction there throughout the year. Interestingly enough, he goes forward and suggests Brett Camorley, who was an assistant at Canberra at the time, or Penrith Panthers under-20s coach Trent Barrett as potential interim coaches, which especially the Barrett factor, we know how that would have gone. Both of them ex-teammates of Paul Gallen. I wonder if any Brownie-style slaps would have occurred because it would have been a difficult environment to come into.
Yeah.
So Gallen did go on to say, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win some games. Obviously, they won a game here, but was very much a down season. I remember watching some of the press conferences there, and Sharpie was appeared to be lost for words, lost for ideas. And I suppose if you're in that position and you don't want to be there, your
heart's not in it. Yeah, you're not interested.
The thing had changed too. Reading, I think it was Paul Gallen's book, Luke Lewis's book, and even comments from Wade Graham in interviews. I think there's a really good interview with Wade Graham last year, the year before, probably. I think it was one with James Graham, but talking about how at the time it's a miracle that they won any matches because they were hardly training. They could hardly focus on anything really. Football, sure, that was an escape from all the stuff that was happening with Asada, but it was borderline impossible for the team to get together, to get any coherence whatsoever. I suppose these controversies can galvanize teams, but didn't happen in. Well, and I'm not saying
they were too big. They were too big to galvanize. It was just tore us apart. There's too many distractions, and we were just defeated, weren't we?
Yeah, I suppose it galvanized them in 2013, and especially that first home match, and throughout the season there during various stages. But by 2014. Yeah, it was all over. It was just an absolute slog. So
it goes to show. Just looking at the highlights today, that it looks like the game looked like an advertisement for Best and Less. There are no sponsors on the jersey. It was just very bland.
At least they had CSFC across there because a lot of the time they had nothing. I think it was early 2015 where there was just a white chasm, nothing. But anyway, so Peter Sharp, this would be his final match as coach. Several days later, on the 1st of July 2014, he announced his resignation. I don't think he even fronted the media. There was a paraphrase quote in one of the, I think the official statement from the Sharks, saying that he thanks everyone for the opportunity he had in his time there. Steve Noyce spoke, but Sharpie was on his way. I think it was the under-20s. I think he was under-20s coach at the time. James Shepherd suddenly got thrust in to be the first grade coach. He's popped up at a few different places. I know he's assistant to Adam O'Brien. Obviously, he's assistant to Flanagan in the coach's box in 2016 when he won the comp, but he's floated around a bit. Hasn't had another first grade job as far as I know, but obviously he'd back up and win.
That was enough, mate. That's enough to put anyone out of it.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't quit after the following week when we came back from 24-0 down to beat the Roosters 30 points to 28, which has got to be that would be some kind of something paying thousands for the odds of that to happen. But so moving on from Sharpie, quick comment on Suncorp Stadium. That was actually a third win in a row at the venue. I was there for the preceding 2 wins in 2012, where we won during Origin season. Then in 2013, we won there as well by 1 point with a Todd Carney field goal. I think we're leading by 7, and we can see the late try. That one, I think, from memory, was like 0-0 or 2-0 at halftime, and then Broncos scored first. We kind of ran away with it for a bit, and then they came back. Bit of a strange game. The Broncos weren't that great in 2013, while we were obviously on our way to, I think it was a 5th or 6th place finish. And then this one was a surprise. So a difficult place to travel, but we managed to get 3 in a row, and that hasn't happened before or since. But have you been to Suncorp? Any comments on there?
Never been to Suncorp, mate. I've been up I've seen up to Robina and seen the Titans.
Yeah.
I now have family in Brisbane, so I should be there this weekend. But I'll get up there in the next couple of years, hopefully, and see a game up there. Maybe Magic Round. Who knows? We'll podcast from Magic Round, maybe. We'll see. Don't
go rushing up there. I mean, I've seen way too many losses up there. I've seen some. I've seen two wins in that location, but a lot of losses as well. So, and not a happy hunting ground. We'll talk more on the Tuesday night show about the exact record as we did before the Roosters game a few weeks ago. But anyway, it was a nice little run of wins that we had there. But on to the big show, the big comments opening up. So the reason why we're in this match, yes, Paul Gallen had a captain's knock, but we had a guy at number 6 known as Todd Carney, who was the 2010 Dalian Player of the Year. You know about all his off-field indiscretions throughout his time at the Raiders, Atherton, and the Sydney Roosters. But here he stood up, scored a try, had 3 assists, and the following days, an image. So this is the 27th of June. By the 29th of June, he would no longer be with the club. On the 28th of June, I think I was hungover actually and woke up and maybe saw the image. And I was like, that's some kind of sick joke. That's someone's photoshopped that, surely. And went from there. What were your thoughts? What were your memories of this piece of Cronulla history?
I think I flicked the picture straight to Chris Kelly when I received it on my phone. I was, we were on such a high from that game. And then we're like, we've got a bit of direction. This Carney's going awesome. And
and then so as he revealed in, I'm going to give a plug to the Buy Round podcast with James Graham. Todd Carney had a very lengthy interview with him. I think it goes for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Great interview where he talks about his whole career, his life before and since, everything he's doing with himself now, living on the Gold Coast, living clean, back with his partner, and I think he's got at least 1 kid, maybe 2.
Yep, he might have 2.
Yeah, 2 actually. Yeah, so really straightened himself out. Realised, I think he exact quote was, thinking back to this period, it pees him off. In that, obviously, opportunity lost. He, at the time, I think the image was taken at Northies a few weeks prior, at least a week or 2 prior to this. So initial reports were that he'd gone out and celebrated a bit too hard in Brisbane and went from there. It was actually something from a few weeks before. He didn't remember it. He actually got a copy of the image from his manager the next day and said, "Hey, what the F's this?" That was David Riolo. It escalated from there. The way it was handled by the club, I think Baldo will probably go into it further. As to as a connection with the board at the time, that I'm not sure how much they can speak, but of how it was handled or not handled. In that, obviously, Carney by the 29th was dismissed. the interview with James Graham, and I think Andy Raymond as well, an interview with Todd Carney, reveals that Wade Graham was actually, I think it was Wade Graham was over at Todd Carney's place, and he received a text message from the Sharks media manager, basically saying no one is to make any statement about the Todd Carney decision or something along those lines. And he looked at Todd and went, "Hey, have you just been sacked? What does this mean?" So I believe Steve Noyce prior to that had gone over to his place and said Todd Carney doesn't need to go to training, and Wade Graham had said, "Oh, why is that? Surely he shouldn't be excluded from the group." And yeah, by the Sunday Carney was gone. There was the trial by media. I remember I was firmly in the camp of this is ridiculous. Why are we dismissing him? Sure, there's a litany of indiscretions, but gosh, come on, that's the difference between the Roosters, the Broncos, Manly, Melbourne, and us. We always seem to make the call to remove the player when others circle the wagons and keep them. Yep. So there's a hypothetical coming up, but what were your thoughts at the time over the decision made and everything going on?
Look, we were weak at the time.
Yeah.
We'd been smashed around by the Asada thing. We needed to attract sponsorship. I get them doing it. I don't think it was the right decision. From what I heard at the time, that was a common prank, a common joke amongst footy teams and that sort of thing. Yeah, I think if this happens at a stronger club, he stays.
Yeah, and even like I was pretty sure it was the Andy Raymond interview where this is something I listened to a few months ago, but Andy Raymond was going, "Come on, it's not the crime of the century. Like people need to move on and grow up," and definitely agree with that. I suppose the factor of hindsight, and I know what was being spoken about at the time. You're right. We were weak. We didn't have a sponsor. Everyone was talking about fold the club, relocate the club. I think I got to
a bit of a rash decision.
Yeah, rash decision. He was moved on. But looking at the actual sums of it, Todd Carney had signed recently at the end of the 2013 season. So we took a punt on him 2012 and 13. He'd obviously had the year off between Canberra and the Roosters, where he played with Atherton up in North Queensland. He then played for the Roosters, had the breakout 2010 season, made the grand final, Dalian Player of the Year. Then went downhill a bit, a few more alcohol-induced indiscretions. Released from the Roosters end of 2011. We picked him up on a 2-year deal. There was a lot of talk, a lot of interest about other clubs taking him, swooping in. And I think he hadn't quite discouraged that at the time. He was trying to look after himself financially, and the Sharks were, I suppose, pressured into offering him a huge money deal. So it was a $3.3 million deal that would have him at the club for 5 years. So that's 2014 to the end of the 2018 season. And that's what he signed. So he was only.
And that's a big contract. That's a big contract to put on a player with that sort of background. I guess it's and I told you so moment maybe from some people, but
yeah, I know.
I guess I wasn't overly surprised that it happened. I was just think the way it could have been handled a lot differently.
Yeah, I suppose there's a lot of talk. I myself had witnessed him. I wasn't even living in Sydney at the time, but obviously there was all the rumours getting around of how he was acting midweek, where he was frequenting, what venues he was frequenting. Sorry, my correction was 3.1 million over 5 years. But yeah, he's a huge punt. It was the biggest in the club's history. I agreed with it at the time, especially his 2013 season. Unfortunately, he missed the semi-final against Manly. And he had a few injury issues, but he had played a vast majority of the year in 2012 before he had the Achilles injury against Canberra. So there was the injury factors, the off-field factors, but still he brought a lot to the club. He was good enough to win Dalian Player of the Year. I think he was a rookie of the year with the Raiders back in the day. So it's what might have been factor with his career. But the big hypothetical is if, and this is the conspiracy theory, I suppose, was there was the rumors that the Sharks were looking for any reason to get rid of him because of the injury issues and the fact that he wasn't going to be able to see out his deal. So they removed him. He had only played a handful of matches in 2014, and then they've removed him. So if we don't remove him, the bubbler doesn't happen, or he doesn't get medically retired, leave, released, whatever, what becomes of 2015 and 16? Where are we from there? It's something we'll never know, but whether we could have fit him and Maloney in the salary cap and we don't sign Chad Townsend, I don't know. But looking at his actual, I suppose, injury issues and the amount of games he played, so he played only 9 matches in the 2014 season through till round 16. He then proceeded to Cal Lance in 2015, played 12 matches. 2016, he played 21 games. 2017 for Salford, he played 16. and for Hull KR in 2018, which would have been his final season with us, played 6. So we're talking Matt Moylan levels of serviceability there. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Any I suppose opinions on what might have been?
I don't think we get the premiership if he's there, and Maloney's not. Maloney pulled a lot of games out of his behind in that 2016 season. Just nailing sideline conversions. I think it was one against the Bulldogs that put us in front by 2 and we won the game.
Yeah,
that path that doesn't happen, then Maloney's not there. We don't win the comp.
Yeah, you need Maloney.
I think.
I mean,
I know Ennis had a lot to do with that too, and stars aligned and whatnot. But Maloney just steered us beautifully, and
Maloney
is the difference for me.
There's so many factors, but you don't win them without Maloney. We had Barber. Sure, he wasn't peak form in 2015, but we had Barber, we had Ennis. Maloney was the missing link. Yes, we signed Chad back for 2016 as well. I'd like to think, no discredit to Chad, great to have a local junior winning. And Chad did have some good games despite his detractors. He was man of the match in the home game against the Dragons earlier in the year. He did also.
Chad was just that safety for us, and Maloney just orchestrated. It was just. Yeah,
you're right. Whereas having, I suppose, Carney and Maloney, if you could somehow have that Dreams Harps pairing, obviously you got the injury factor of Carney. Is he fit? Is he not? Then you're looking at if you didn't have
too many
Chad,
cooks, sort of.
Yeah, too many cooks, but you also would have had your backup half probably would have been Farmano Brown, so he would have had a bit more game time, but he wasn't great with injuries as well. So we never would have known, but it's funny how these things happen. Obviously, the hindsight and the luxury of having a premiership to look back on, it makes it so much easier to have this conversation, but I'd never really looked at it that way until now. I think maybe Kelly and I, in a previous episode of this, had quickly discussed and gone sliding doors what may have been. I'm going, I'll have to come back to that. But Todd Carney, great player, plenty of great periods. One of my favourite games by him, I think, was after in 2012 we got pumped at home by Canberra. There was a lot of criticism of him. I think for those that played Dream Team or Fantasy, he scored single digits or maybe even negative points the following week over the ditch in Auckland. We're playing the Warriors, who were, I suppose, coming off the 2011 grand final appearance, and we smashed him. I think he scored a plethora of points. We put 40 on, and it was just that kind of free running, freewheeling guy that would just flick a switch and turn the game on its head. So, and I think I think Andrew Johns' final match actually before he retired due to injury in early 2007, Carney had scored a million points and the Raiders put 50 on. So it was a bit of a change in the guard there. I think it was talk about Carney's the next big thing, and he was, but he'd be the first to admit too that he, I suppose, didn't live up to his potential due to many reasons. But looking at the financial fallout, Carney would later sue the club and settle. He was claiming damages of over $2 million. It wasn't officially confirmed how much that was, but it was settled out of court due to the lack of process followed in his dismissal. Yep. So
it's unlike us to pay people out for early, isn't it?
Yeah,
coaches or
not dot the I's and dot the T's, Chris Anderson and the like. But anyway, that was that. So alternate histories. Look at the fallout. I suppose here we are, 24-22 with the tries to Gagan, Gallen, Carney, and Fecky. Gordon with the trusty 4 from 4 from his right boot, while the Broncos 22 double to David Harler, Alex Glenn, Daniel Vito tries. I think Daniel Vito's now a wrestler. I think.
Yeah. I don't know if he's still the Samoan Ghost. Or something like that. I think. I think he might have come back again to someone else. Not too sure.
I need Kelly and Boulder to clarify that. And Ben Hunt, unlikely goal kicking performance, 3 from 4. We would win the following week, as we said. We'll cover that at a later date because that is even more unbelievable. James Shepherd, first game as coach. We're without Todd Carney, first game post Todd Carney era. We were without, I think, Paul Gallen as well due to state of origin and other outs, and we came back from 24-0 down at the old Sydney Football Stadium to beat the Roosters 30 points to 28, including almost last-minute Mitch Orbison try that resulted in him being held up. So that's another classic. And
that one.
We know how the season finished. I thought that was like, do we win another game that year? We do. We beat the Panthers in Bathurst We scored 4 tries that day. Michael Gordon, with his trusty right boot, only kicked 1 goal from 4. I was there. It was cold. It was windy. Jamie Soward missed a kick from close to the sideline to potentially tie it up late, but he missed it, and we won 18-16 in that one. And then we got the spoon. So we won't talk about that. Finished 16th, 5 wins, 19 losses. The Broncos snuck into the 8th with a even split of 12 wins and 12 losses. Any closing comments, mate, from this glorious 2014 edition?
Yeah, mate. It was just messy. It's just one I don't want to really revisit again, to be honest. Yeah. It was just frustrating just thinking about where we were as a club at that time, and it's just so good to see how far we've come since then, and that can just stay in the past.
That's it. Thank goodness. Well, just thinking about it, thank goodness for 2016 and 2015 and everything else. But 2014, so we beat the Warriors. Nathan Stapleton scored 4 tries in that match and then left the club a few weeks later. So that's probably worthy of a chat. I'll cover that at some stage. We beat the Panthers at home. That was a big win. That was the Michael Gordon catching from the bomb, them scoring late, us scoring again. I think it might have even been for Fifita, and then them almost scoring but not. So that was a bit of a good win, which is bizarre. In such a horror season, we had 5 memorable wins, probably because it was also bleak. That was back in the days where we'd win, kind of like 2009, 2010, 2007. You'd win games, and I remember the old CWC days, you'd celebrate like you won the grand final. It's like, settle there, boys. We're coming to 14th. But anyway, those were the days. So you've had your closing comments, I suppose, other than it being yucky, nothing more to
mate.
messy, nothing more to add. Yeah.
No, that's all good for me, mate.
Yeah, so I'm sure there were plenty of Queensland Sharks fans. There's a lot up there. I know a lot of them from my time living up there. So if you were there, let us know. If you walked out, I don't blame you at all. Gosh, as we said, the Parramatta game, we almost did, but we came back a bit. But yeah, so if you're there, let us know. As always, hit the like and subscribe. So if you've got any particular comments about this period, if you happen to know anyone else as well, that's a little link there with Jacob Gagan, let us know, and we'll see if we can even get our tentacles out there and go, hey guys, do you want to come on this show and talk some random stuff about a match you may not recall? But I'd like to think Jacob would probably remember a fair bit about that one being his first try,
pretty
his
memorable.
First win. So we might see if we can line that up another time. But thanks for listening, and in the meantime, up.